Hello, my name is Gabriel, and I speak some languages. Today, I'm going to talk about resources for learning French. If you have watched my video on resources for learning German, many of them will be similar, because I was learning German and French at the same time, more or less. And I'm also going to mention that I won't be reviewing popular programs that have already reviewed. For example, Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, Pimsleur. I have already done reviews on these programs, and they're essentially, going to be generally the same for all the languages that they do. So you can check them out if you're interested in them. But in this video, I won't talk about them. Aside from the fact that, it'll be fun to start with Duolingo, for instance, in French if you haven't started yet, or try a website like lingq.com, lingq.com. One of my favorite websites for getting started and also progressing in a language. I'm going to talk a bit more about other resources that I used for learning French. If you watch my video about how hard it is to learn French, I speak French decently well. I should be at a C1 level. I really like the French language. It took me a while to learn it. I think that it took me about 4 years to become fluent in French, although I was a bit lazy in those 4 years. One thing that I would have done differently from what I did compared to right now as I learn new languages, I would have tried to tackle more difficult content more quickly, because I think that I focused on the basics for a long time. I think that audio with text is a great way to go. On lingq.com, there is a lot of audio with text that you can try to use, so you can listen to the language. So without further ado, I think that this is an essential resource to have as you're learning French. This is the Becherel, and maybe it looks different now. This is like an old edition, I think. And it has basically the conjugations of verbs, and it's a great little book. Why do you need this, or why would this be useful? Well, basically because French verb conjugation is not necessarily a walk in the park. So it's really nice to have this sort of resource so that you can actually try to master French verb conjugation. So having this around as you're learning French won't hurt you. The Becherel. A nice, thick French-English dictionary can be quite helpful. I really like this concise Oxford Hachette French dictionary, and I think that it really helped. Of course, that you can use an online dictionary, and but I personally found that this dictionary really helped me learn, and it's nice to have something like on paper. And I just find that this dictionary is it has more detail than online dictionaries that I found. Of course, that I've come across a few pretty good online dictionaries, but I think that having a really good one can be quite handy as you're learning the language. So I also have this one for German, the big blue book of French verbs with 555 verbs, and they have these top 50 verbs with a lot of sentences using the verbs in context. I find that very useful, and you can tell me, well, you already told me that the Becherel is very useful, but it doesn't hurt to have this as well, although it also has the verb conjugations. It basically has a lot of really good phrases that you can use to learn French. Living language, French Advanced. I'm sure that they have a basic or intermediate version, I believe. I personally enjoyed the advanced version. It has really good conversations. Okay, so like long conversations in French, along with the translation, and then exercises for mastering specific concepts. The only thing that I would say is a disadvantage about this particular resource is that a big chunk of it is just basically the answers. Of course, it's really important to have the answers to the questions and to the exercises, but at the same time, I just found that although the content was good, that it's almost like there's not enough of it, but it is quite good. French pronouns and prepositions, practice makes perfect, from McGraw-Hill. I did enjoy this book, just because then you can focus on specific aspects of the language. In this case, pronouns. And here, for instance, I have these French verb drills that I did enjoy as well. But like I always say, I don't think that if you just sit there and do exercises, that's not gonna just make you master whatever you're trying to do, right? I think that it's really important to review the exercises that you do in some way or another. So perhaps as you're learning something in specific, let's say verb conjugation, you can try to use phrases that you came up with, perhaps from your exercises, and then later review them, perhaps with flashcard software or just with straight up flashcards. That way you can review the conjugations and absorb them a bit better than simply doing exercises. Last but not least, I have a lot of bilingual books that I used to essentially get more exposure to French literature or to international literature in French and in a different language. This one is in French and German, French and German, French and English, Sherlock Holmes, French and Italian, French and Russian, French and Spanish. I'm gonna take this one, the Sherlock Holmes one, and basically one page is in English, the other one is in French, and it has, well, in this case it has French notes over here. And this book is actually meant for French people learning English, but I think that it's, perfectly useful for someone essentially learning French. And if you do speak other languages, you can get a bilingual book as well in French and in that language to essentially practice both languages at once. Reading is so important for you to boost your vocabulary and get better, get ahead in the language. So with these books, I think that I was able to really get a lot of progress in French. And most of them I bought in Paris, and I'm sure they can be found online. There are, however, many different publications that you can find that offer bilingual books. As your French gets better, what you can do is try to not rely on the translation right beside it and try to focus just on the French. But if you don't understand something, of course, that you can just go right back to the page on the left to see what you didn't understand. I've met other polyglots that don't like this as much, but I personally really enjoyed it, and I think that all these books really helped me. I think at some point or another read most of these books, and so that really contributed to, helping me establish a decent vocab in French. French is a very rich language. It has a lot of words. There are many words that are similar to English, so that is an advantage, but there are, however, some false cognates as well, some false friends. One thing about the French language is that, at least for me, I found it very difficult to establish good pronunciation. For instance, in 2012, I went to Paris, and although my level of grammar was already quite good, and I could express a lot of my ideas, my accent was very, very thick. My pronunciation wasn't that great. So Parisians would often simply just switch to English really quickly. 2014, that was maybe my 6th time in Paris, that Parisians actually started communicating with me only in French. I was quite pleased to reach that level. That being said, given that pronunciation is a bit tricky in French, and I also found that reaching a good level of understanding when listening to French was also a bit tricky. So I think that it's crucial, it's so important to do a lot of listening. And it's great to do listening when you have the text, so that if you don't understand something, you can really just read it so you can see what's going on and promote your understanding that way. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed some of these resources, and good luck learning French.